Good evening, everyone. My name is Sister Rosine Savzak. I'm president of SAVE, and we're happy that you could come here tonight to hear a very wonderful lecture by a very wonderful person that I will introduce you to in a minute. But I would like to invite Sister Paula up here to give a little prayer. She found something and she would like to share it with us. So, Paula, she's our new board member also.
This is a reflective thought from spiritual practice of the day. The Hopi Indians of Arizona believe that our daily rituals and prayers literally keep this world spinning on its axis. For me, feeding the seagulls is one of those everyday prayers. To practice this thought, identify one activity you do every day that can be regarded as a devotional act to sustain the world.
Thanks, Paula. I would like to invite Sister Sharon Havlack to tell you a little bit about SAVE and what we are doing.
Good evening and welcome. Just a little bit of a background about SAVE, which has a wonderful long history, especially of our free public lectures that we do 5 times a year. SAVE is really just a fabulous organization looking at not only the ecological dimensions, but how they connect with our spirituality and actually with everything that's happening on our planet. And so besides the bi-monthly lectures, which now we try to focus on sustainability because that is such an increasingly important aspect of the environment, especially in our world today. Besides that, we also offer scholarships for youth in science camps, as well as offering several different environmental awards to various people in the local community who are trying to help our planet. And we also are working with the Northeast Ohio District Science Day to offer certificates to students who are working on projects that have to do with sustainability or care for the planet. So we have a wide range of different activities that we take part in. One of our major fundraisers is to the sale of honey and maple syrup from our local area. So we do ask you to keep that in mind. Besides having some here at the lecture, we also sell it at All Good Things, our store here on the Sylvania Franciscan campus. And I think that's basically what we need to say. Oh, can't forget this. One of the important things that we do is we're only able to do all the things that we do because of the support of our various sponsors. Budget Lines, The Hives, Lubricate, Bethany, Sophia Center, Frogtown Computers, Lourdes University, Lake Erie's Water Keepers, Holy Spirit Catholic Community, the Butterfly House, Wildburst Unlimited, Wright Financial Group, and of course the Sisters of St. Francis of Sylvania, Ohio. So we thank them and for the continued support. Sister Rosine?
Yes, we do have, I did tell you ahead of time that this lecture would not be recorded, but we talked to Sister Maureen this evening and she agreed that it could be recorded. So it will be on YouTube. You can go to our website and for that. And we're very happy that she has agreed to do that. Her lecture tonight is entitled Sacred Pathways to Earth Healing from, excuse me, Cosmic Grace and Guidance to Personal and Community Choices. Maureen, excuse me. Maureen is a sister of charity from Halifax, Nova Scotia. She is the coordinator of Pax Gaia Educational and Retreat Initiatives. She has a whole long here too. She got her bachelor's degree at the University of Alberta in Edmonton, which she said was her hometown, a certificate in spiritual theology from college in Toronto, at Lesley University, Cambridge, Massachusetts, with a focus on earth literacy and the new cosmology. She's an educator and administrator of Genesis Farm Ecological Learning Center from 1993 to 2000, and that's in Blairstown, New York, or New Jersey, excuse me, and that's where I met her. Founding director, Center for Earth and Spiritual Society from 2001 to 2007, and that's at Vancouver Island, British Columbia. She's now the coordinator of Pax Gaia Education and Retreat Initiatives from 2007 to the present day. So I would like to present to you Sister Maureen. Go ahead, Maureen, you're on.
Thank you so much, Sister Rosine. It's wonderful to be in the presence of those from Ohio here too. One of my grandmothers was from Ohio, from the area of Delphus.
Oh,
And when she was in her 20s and she was married already and they had their first 3 children, they immigrated to Canada. So I have Ohio connections, Ohio in my blood. So a warm good evening to all of you. And it's an honor for me to be invited by Sister Rosine to be part of your 2023 lecture series. Thank you, Rosine, for that invitation and for all of you for coming tonight. And thank you, John, for your technical support for this Zoom platform. So I'm going to share my screen with you now.
not on.
Can you see it, John?
Looking good.
Looking good? Great. So though I'm a sister of charity, and maybe for all of the rest of you, if you could mute your audio, it'll help me to focus as well. Thank you. So though I'm a sister of charity of Halifax, I'm not from Halifax. It's a congregation that is North American, and we're on the West Coast as well, and that's where I am. I'm on the West Coast of Canada. I come to you from the West Coast, and you can see the area that's circled. That's Gabriola Island, right hugging up against Vancouver Island. And across the Georgia Strait is Vancouver. So that's about an hour and a half ferry trip across to Vancouver. John, are you able to mute everyone except myself?
I think I am, yes.
Thank you. And with this map of watersheds in this western part of Canada, you'll see the circle coming in the bottom. That's Vancouver Island in the middle part of it, and that's where I am. And you can see Seattle is just below where I am, just to give a sense of place here. And I live on the unceded and traditional territory of the Coast Salish peoples, namely where the Nanaimo people have lived for hundreds of generations. I am deeply blessed and grateful to live by these coastal waters, home of the orca and countless forms of amazing marine life. And Pacific rainforest, home of the sword fern and red cedar, the arbutus, Douglas fir, and on and on. Great abundance of life in the forests. With some still protected patches of this old growth forest. Upon entering such a place, one immediately feels the awesome presence of ancient trees and a forest floor cloaked in green. I get swept up within it all, a mystical wonderful place, really God's cathedral. At least that's how it is for me. And this image mirrors an area where I like to go for walks with my little dog. This is one of my photos of that area. And here's Tilly. Tilly loves it too. She really does. And her energy is so curious and happy and peaceful and free. And you never know who else may show up. Don't miss this. A special moment might bring a woodpecker, but always it's Brother Raven one hears in the distance. And I acknowledge that I have much to learn from indigenous traditional knowledge and ways of life that foster respect, care, and healing for Earth's community. Before I continue, I invite you to a silent moment to acknowledge the lands and waters from where you live, and the indigenous of your area, the native animals, the trees and plants, and the particular first peoples of those lands. Thank you. The title of my reflection tonight is Sacred Pathways to Earth Healing. From cosmic grace and guidance to community choices and to personal choices. My intention is to focus on 3 interconnected subtitles tonight, giving about 20 minutes or so for each of them. The first will be focused on efforts within the local community, my local community of Gabriola Island, a population of about 5,000 people from diverse backgrounds, set within some context as expressed by Canadian writer and earth activist Naomi Klein. The second part of tonight's talk will focus on reflections of Thomas Berry on the earth as a self-healing community, and sprinkled here and there with other examples. And the third part of tonight will focus on connections to the global work of healing and justice as it relates to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 6, water and sanitation. Okay, are you on your toes, ready for the first? The first part is created by me as a timed slide meditation. But occasionally, I will pause a slide and read from it. It reveals local efforts in striving more and more towards a healthy community, both for humans and for the earth community in our local area. Gabriola talks on future sustainability for the island. This was a forum held in March 2020, just days before the pandemic required widespread global lockdown. You can see the outline of our island done with wide tape on the floor. See it there in green? We were over 50 attendees, and I'm just circled my head there, though I'm sitting in that second row. This local community forum is focused on what we could do better as a community in addressing climate change, So it links to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 13 on climate action. So I'm bringing that in tonight as well. In this regard, I draw some context from the writings of Naomi Klein, Canadian author and journalist, with excerpts from her book, This Changes Everything. And with a few reminders to us of the avalanche of climate disruptions we are now witnessing in the 21st century. So a few time slides I have timed to begin, and just a warning that this is sobering to watch. While still just a few examples, we have witnessed more than what these slides show. Naomi Klein writes, climate change isn't an issue to add to the list of things to worry about next to healthcare and taxes. It is a civilizational wake-up call, a powerful message spoken in the language of fires, floods, droughts, and extinctions, is telling us that we need an entirely new economic model and a new way of sharing this planet. These are all examples on Gabriola. The Gabriola Commons is intended as a source of ecological and community well-being that exists in perpetuity for the benefit of the people of Gabriola Island and the land on which it is situated. 26 acres of farmland are held in common by the residents of Gabriola. This is also where we have our community gardens, and I've had a plot there for about 14 years now. At the Commons, there are almost 100 plots used by community members. In addition, there are garden areas for seniors, children, and people for a healthy community. It's a nonprofit group on our island that help people in need, who serve islanders in need. Also at the Gabriola Commons, gardening education is provided for the elementary school students who are right across the street. It's so handy for them. So they actually have a teaching gardener that stays in the garden on Fridays, and the children come over to receive lessons in the garden. Some more time slides about what happens on Gabriola. Slow Foods was launched early spring of 2007, goes strong today by people who believe that intentionally buying seasonal, local, and organic as much as possible is a primary step in assisting food sustainability. And our Ecumenical Society hosted this forum, Eating as a Spiritual Practice of Love for Earth. We have a Vegeteers group on the island, vegan group. They call themselves the Gabriola Vegeteers. So a few women on our island who harvest local herbs and make them into tinctures and salves and ointments and healing remedies. In pragmatic terms, Naomi writes, our challenge is less to save the earth from ourselves and more to save ourselves from an earth that, if pushed too far, has ample power to rock, burn, and shake us off completely. That knowledge should inform all we do. New Society publishers on Gabriola for, I think, close to 20 years now. It's their team, and they've published some amazing books. Among their countless published books, there's many, but this is Joanna Macy's Coming Back to Life, The Urban Farmer, Aquaponic Gardening, Renewable Energy, A Homeowner's Guide, Urban Water, Preventing the Next Urban Water Crisis, Eco Villages, Financing Our Food Shed. There's cheese making and cheese making classes. It happens in Paula's home. And we have a transit. This is our transit, Gabriola Environmentally Responsible Trans-Isle Express. It's our way to act for climate change using a biofuel. And Varna electric trikes are made on Gabriola. There are a lot of them that you see around. Especially the seniors like to drive those bikes. Hybrids and electric cars have become increasingly popular, I'd say in the last 10 years or so, especially the last 5 years. So we are left, she writes, with a stark choice. Allow climate disruption to change everything about our world, or change pretty much everything about our economy to avoid that fate. Renewables are, in fact, much more reliable than power based on extraction, since those energy models require continuous new inputs to avoid a crash. Whereas once the initial investment has been made in renewable energy infrastructure, nature provides the raw materials for free. What the climate needs to avoid collapse is a contraction in humanity's use of resources. These are examples again on Gabriola. Gabe Energy is solar installations, including photovoltaic and hot water. Future areas include wind power, micro hydro, marine energy, and other appropriate, scalable, and socially responsible technologies. Another energy efficient solution for the island community is our Island Futures group. I think they started in 2009. Is comprised of volunteers creating our future through collaboration. They created a social enterprise for Gabriolans to purchase heat pumps at 50% off the retail price. There are now over 900 heat pumps installed in Gabriolan homes. There are about 2,000 homes here. A local islander is employed to do the installation. It's a win-win scenario with an added big win for the environment. So here's what a heat pump looks like. How does it work? You can see from the illustration, there's also a part that's on the inside of the house. It's an energy efficient way to heat or cool any building. And this is how it works. When there is a call for heat, the heat pump turns on the fan in the outdoor unit to begin the process of extracting heat from the air outside. The refrigerant line carries this heat to the indoor unit, which then transfers the heat to the air inside the home via a fan inside the wall cassette. And in cooling mode, so in the summertime, the process is reversed, transferring heat out of your home and returning cool air to the inside. People love these, and it really cuts the cost of electricity in the building and the heat sources. So Sustainable Gabriola started in 2009, and they're committed to stewarding our natural resources for the benefit of generations to come. And our vision is that future generations will have diverse, healthy ecosystems with access to renewable and non-renewable resources. And coming back to Naomi Klein, Pope Francis recruited her in seeking climate change solutions. So this was her trip to Rome at the invitation of Pope Francis. She writes, "But we need to be very clear. Because of our decades of collective denial, no gradual, incremental options are now available to us. If we are ever to cope with climate change in any fundamental way, radical solutions on the social side are where we must focus." So here on the island, we have environmental protection and education for children. Oceans Day every year in the summer, early summer. We have activist groups. One of them is titled Save Our Shores. And Gabriolans Against Freighter Anchorages. That's a big one here because we're kind of a harbor area for Vancouver. I always wondered why somebody didn't do something about that. Then I realized I am somebody. This showed up somewhere one day. A speaker series From Truth to Reconciliation. So, intentionally walking the path of reconciliation on Gabriola Island in this unceded territory of the Nanaimo people. We have great community meals together, this one being the annual Salmon Barbecue, a fundraiser for our local Gabriola Community Hall, and our excellent recycling organization, Gyro. Just the stuff of the island keeps getting repurposed. Profits from this shop and other thrift store support Meals on Wheels and other programs for the hospital auxiliary. People for a Healthy Community serve those in need of food, advocate for employment and housing needs, and provide monthly luncheons and other services for seniors. And this was a collaborative fundraiser for People for a Healthy Community, and one of the big prizes was to win a heat pump. And Sanctuary Gabriola, called SAGA, formed with the objective of sponsoring 2 refugee families to Gabriola, helping them become part of our community. So in 2016, we sponsored a family of 6 from Syria, and in 2019, we sponsored a family of 4 from Eritrea. And this is a friend of mine. It's an example of the power of one, Noj. She has a Guatemala outreach, and she has yard sales raising money to assist poor Mayan communities. Those are the areas that she's assisting. She's come to know the people there and absolutely love them. She lives there part of her year. And the Christmas Spirit Feast, it's been going for years on Christmas Day. Turkeys from Gabriola's Somerset farm with a vegetarian option. Everybody's invited. It's free. Pandemic Christmas Spirit Feast 2021. Just come back to that one. That meals were prepared and frozen in advance because of the pandemic and the protocols. But we still had it, just a different form of it. And volunteers provided home deliveries. It was different, but it was something. And our clinic has a story of being like a Amish barn raising, the story of an island community who raised the money and pooled their many volunteers to build their own health clinic in 2012, and with an ambulance bay to it. And classes in Pilates and yoga, Qigong, Tai Chi, folk dance, you name it. The works. And Gabriolans love the arts and look for ways to celebrate the arts. These are all Gabriolans here, different musicians on the island. It's a choir that went on one of the buses to sing in various stops. And we have something called Cultivate. It's a annual kind of a festival of the arts with music, theater, and art for a whole few days. Quite a lot for a small community, but people love to sing. And we have the talent of leadership here, people who can lead it. And Plain Chant, our Gregorian chant group, which Hiromi, she's in the orange sweater on the bottom. Hiromi guides the Plain Chant. And our museum, which is always developing and growing. It's an amazing museum. It has a lot of programs for the public. And our Gabriola Land and Trails Trust, they offer programs to the people besides maintaining a lot of trails in the wilderness. They hosted a edible wild mushroom workshop as one example. This is a protected old growth forest. It's the one where I go for walks with my little dog. Took more than 15 years of community effort and dedication, and it's now protected in perpetuity since 2006. And we have the Gabriola Rescue of Wildlife Society, GROWLS for an acronym. And Gabriela Talks. So I kind of started that way with one of our forums on water, on climate crisis, on food, on governance, reconciliation, on housing, on transportation, you name it. And it's a space for productive discussions around very complex community issues here and lots of different opinions on things. So it's a way bringing Gabrielans together. And that's organized and facilitated by Sustainable Gabriela. So even during the pandemic, a community value survey went out. And some of the focus on human rights were elder care, affordable housing, systemic racism, welcoming refugees. And the survey included aspects of the environment. And I've circled a few just to highlight them. Ending consumerism, a green burial cemetery, reduce air travel. Just a few examples. So this is the end of the first part. I told you there are 3 parts to this presentation. Let's just pause in silence for a minute or so. What stands out for you about these efforts in a relatively small local community? Just hold that question. What stands out for you? If you are on virtual, if you wanted to write anything in the chat, just feel free to do that. I know we're a hybrid model here tonight, and some don't have available access to chat box. Is there anyone who'd like to speak a word or two of what stands out for you, just to hear someone speak?
If anybody wants to contribute, feel free to speak up. There's a microphone somewhere.
They did their homework, saw reality, and acted.
It's amazing, a small island doing so much. Because the people want to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's great intention here.
It just seems like such a healthy way to live.
For those attending virtually, feel free to unmute your microphone.
Well, those are great comments. Thank you. And I offer that as, examples in our local community here. There are more than this, and some of the ones I shared with you, some of the projects may have dwindled. Like I know one of the CSAs, the gardens, the couple couldn't sustain it anymore, Kate and Dion, so they've moved on to something else. So things come and go a little bit, but there's always that deeper intention to keep moving forward and to keep evolving things. So thank you. For the part 2 now, we're going to focus on Thomas Berry, and who was one of my great teachers. And I feel privileged to have known him personally and to have sat in venues when he was speaking, and of course to read a lot of his writings. So Thomas wrote about the earth as a self-healing community within a longer essay about the Ecozoic. And he wrote, each community of earth carries within itself the special powers of regeneration. The healing of the earth community has two basic dimensions that are intertwined. There is the need for the healing of the earth as a whole. And there is the need for the healing of the human, considered as a particular species. In both related endeavors, the context for the healing is the universe as a whole. The powers of healing, the powers of regeneration, the powers of renewal are rooted in the primordial realities of the universe, the earth, and the human species. Any approach to healing that forsakes this ultimate context needlessly cuts itself off from the most profound source of all healing. The indigenous peoples understood this point fully and provide for us leadership in this work of understanding the regional, planetary, and cosmic context for healing. Here's a good news story from a year ago about indigenous lands finally being returned to them after 113 years. Returned to them for their stewardship, because they are the ones who understand a regional context for regeneration and healing. So this was published by the Organic Consumers Association on the theme of that particular periodical was regenerative agriculture as a climate solution. So this story in it was after 113 years of fighting the United States government and systemic racism, the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes are once again managing over 18,000 acres of wildlands and its resident bison herd. This land is at the base of Montana's Mission Mountains. And Shelley Fyant, the chairwoman, said, it's a reconciliation. We are such a place-based people. To have this land back, to be in control of it, is a fresh new hope. To heal the earth, Thomas says, two obvious paths offer themselves. We must say no and yes. No to the processes that are ruining the planet. We must say no to the poisons that industrial processes pour into the earth. And yes to the processes that assist with the planet's regeneration. He writes, so long as the patient is inundated with new poisons each second, the healing powers are crippled in their efficacy. We must say no to the processes that are crippling the planet's ecosystems. The instant we stop our assault on the earth, the regenerative powers of the earth will be able to perform their work more efficiently. Remember this? The pandemic lockdown in 2020, and we started seeing images like this when the air in industrial cities started to clear of their pollution, of its pollution. The instant we stop our assault on the earth, the regenerative powers will perform their work more efficiently. Besides direct action to stop the destruction, Thomas writes, we must also provide restorative assistance to the earth community in its healing processes. So, what are some examples of restorative assistance that are happening in your area? On the British Columbia coast, we have some restoration of streams for salmon spawning. And certain areas in regional and provincial parks prohibit walking off the marked trails so as to protect the regeneration of native plants. You probably have some of the same things happening there. Thomas writes, already great work has been done, and more is underway. Particular species once threatened with extinction have been brought back to sustainable numbers. Wetlands previously poisoned have been restored to health. Forests in Costa Rica have been preserved and regenerated. In India, some 10 billion trees have been planted. 10 billion. In addition to the work of restoration, Thomas writes, we need to restrict in an absolute sense all activities pushing towards the elimination of the planet's wilderness. We need to set off areas where non-human nature is allowed to evolve along its own lines, free from intrusive human management, even of the most enlightened sort. The healing of the human at the species level begins with a recognition that health comes from the community and is sustained by the community. What good does it do to restore the health of an individual human if we cannot return the human to a healthy community? To be healthy, coherent individuals, we must have a healthy, coherent community and planet to abide with. Thomas writes, humans need to eat foods that can evoke health. The foods created by the earth awaken the health of a human. The foodstuffs invented by industrial processes do not awaken the deeper dimensions of health and often activate degenerative processes within the body. Humans need physical activity for health. Most desirable would be a way of life where walking and physical work were part of one's basic activities. We were shaped by the movements of the earth and are healthiest when we are participating directly in the cosmological events of the seasons. For me, what comes to mind in terms of my own life is working in my garden and how much exercise I get from that. It's great. Humans, he writes, need a rich cultural life for true health. Most desirable would be a cultural life rising out of the biome itself, where each region flourished in its celebrations of the sacred dimensions of its place. This is a choir of Ukrainian women. And he writes, to work for justice for those suffering, discrimination, abuse, exploitation, poverty, forced migration, and so on, is also to participate in the deep self-healing energies of the cosmos. People working for justice need to see their work within the context of the self-healing of the universe and Earth. When they do, their efforts will become part of the energy that greens burnt out forests and that evokes flowers out of supernova explosions. He's being somewhat poetic there, but we get the picture. So before I go on to the last part of tonight's talk, let's just pause in silence and ponder a little more these lessons about self-healing from Thomas. What stays with you? So if you'd like to unmute, or if you're in the room there, conference room, if you'd like to speak in the microphone and just share anything that, even if it's just a word or some insight, what stays with you?
Healthy people, healthy planet. Unhealthy people, unhealthy planet.
The sobering challenge that healing starts with, any healing starts with me. That's challenging.
Mm-hmm. It is.
We need a much deeper respect for our earth, our environment, and each other.
And the depth in the silence.
What?
The depth. DEPTH. The depth in the silence.
The power of the planet.
The planet existed a long time before we came on the scene. How long will it last when we are on the scene?
Thank you. So transitioning now into the third part of tonight's lecture. It's all interconnected, these three, but we'll focus on the theme of justice, on the theme of working for justice, as Thomas wrote, as integral to the self-healing energies of the earth and cosmos, this work of justice. I now turn to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 6. Access to safe water, sanitation, and hygiene is the most basic human need for health and well-being. So there we are. That's this one among the goals that we take a focus on with this particular story. So we go from the local now to the global. So this story I'm going to share with you is a story of coming together in solidarity in a collaborative way to bring potable water and improve sanitation to poor rural communities in Chalatenango district of El Salvador. This is a project of the Sisters of Charity, my group. And as a little background, for over 20 years, the corporate statement on water of my own Sisters of Charity congregation is that we resolve to pray, study, and act to assure the just sharing of water for life on earth. We commit to making a substantial donation to assist the work being done to remedy the water shortage. So SHARE, and SHARE stands for Salvadoran Humanitarian Aid, Research, and Education. SHARE's executive director is this man, Jose Artiga, who we had come to know from some of the experiences of sisters who went on delegations to El Salvador. He was the one who had helped to organize them. Anyway, our sister Cecilia, who was on our leadership team and who was chairing our Sisters Water Project Committee, in 2018 or so, she asked Jose, might you know of a community in El Salvador in need of potable water? It's amazing how one question brought us to where we're at today. So just a reminder of, location. El Salvador is in Central America. Perhaps some of you have been missioned there or in that area. And these Salvadoran groups are going to work with us. Through Jose, these 4 groups soon learn of each other, connect, and begin to collaborate with a common goal for the common good, to bring potable water to a few rural poor communities in Chalatenango, El Salvador. Rural communities in Chalatenango were identified with their urgent need for potable water. The municipality of each community was approached by CCR, and that group is all about the reconstruction or restoration of communities in Chalatenango since the Civil War ended in 1992. So the municipality of each community, these rural poor communities, was approached by CCR to explore the potential of a collaborative water project with them. Their consent, and only with their consent, with agreed upon contributions, allowed the process to unfold. And if you're wondering where is the district of Chalatenango, I've circled it. So here's the map of El Salvador, in red is that district of Chalatenango. By the way, for those of you who know about the 4 church women who were martyred in El Salvador, 2 of them, Mora and Ita, worked in this region of Chalatenango. Chalatenango communities, I identified by CCR decide to move forward. And funds from the Sisters of Charity provided for a limited number of latrines where most urgently needed, pipes and water tanks for the new water system, CCR education for each community, education with regards to growing food, because once you have more water, you can grow more food, and education around nutrition and hygiene, and care of the environment, and gender equality, women's wellness and empowerment, and also CCR liaison work to help each community choose really their own water committee that will oversee and maintain their new water system. It's very comprehensive, a water project that has hygiene as part of it, or sanitation. So together we collaborate with the mayor and the people of this community, and the CCR provide the sisters with regular updates via Zoom and their PowerPoints, presentations with photos of the progress. It's been very rewarding doing this every 3 months or so with them, seeing the progress. The first 3 Chalatenango communities identified by CCR are all near each other, like very close to each other. They were getting their water from a polluted river. These 3 communities represent over 200 families, nearly 800 people. And as I mentioned, their previous water source was a small contaminated river to which women walked daily to gather water and wash clothes. The new source is from this nearby mountain. It has a spring of good water. The land was donated to the municipality from some local person who owned it for the purpose of providing a safe water supply to these communities. They had the donation of the land with the spring, but they needed partners to help them bring this dream into fruition, and to develop it. And they waited 10 years to find partners to enable this dream. CCR, during this whole process, also surveys sanitation and hygiene within the homes of these Chalatenango communities. They assess the need for replacement of old latrines. And old latrines look like this. And like this. The bathrooms of the poor in the country. CCR always consultation. They consult with representatives of the community. Within each community, it's decided which homes will receive a new latrine, because there are only limited funds for so many latrines. A limited number would be financed, but there is still need for more. The sisters couldn't meet everybody's needs, but the community decided which families would receive one. CCR workers purchase and deliver the materials for the new latrines. Materials for each latrine, and these are, by the way, a composting toilet. You'll see a few pictures coming up. It costs about $600 for all the materials for one latrine, and about another $200 for the builder for each latrine. He gets $200. Latrines are built while the water project process continues. Some of the CCR and the share staff who are in San Salvador came to watch as a new latrine was being built in one of these rural communities. And here's this family in front of one of the latrines that's in progress. And here's one that's completed. Notice the poster on the door that's behind the CCR worker in the orange shirt. And here's a close-up of the poster. CCR provided this instruction, so you can see not all people read, so it had to be very visual, how to maintain these composting latrines. The steps are clearly illustrated on a poster on the door of each latrine. They understand how everything works. And if you can see the woman on the left, she's making tortillas for her family inside, and then she's using a kind of a gas fired. Most of them have grills with wood underneath, but she had a gas stove making tortillas. And she was asked the question, because she was one of the recipients of a latrine, that's her latrine on the right, what she thought of her new latrine. She said she's very happy with it because they didn't have one before. She's very happy to have it inside a building. The work continues. Community members begin the physical labor of digging trenches for pipes. So you remember that mountain source, that's the one we're focused on right now. The people's commitment to the project was the labor. They had the land, and now they're providing the labor. It took them about a year because this is at least 4 miles from the closest community. Imagine digging trenches for 4 miles through the mountain, dirt roads and bridges. And no heavy machinery was used. All the excavation was done by hand, and materials were carried by horse and on their backs. This shows the people constructing the capture tank and the filter tank. So 2 tanks are needed. This, again, is part of the funding of the Sisters of Charity, was the pipes and the tanks and latrines. So you can see the tanks are progressing in these images. And here they're collecting materials for the filter tank, and they need for that gravel, fine and clean sand, small rocks, medium stones, coal if possible. All of this helps to filter the water. It's probably the river, the polluted river that they had used as their water source before. Here they are sifting sand, straining and washing sand in the river. And they're preparing the sand casting used to filter the water in the filter tank. Lots of physical labor. And under the guidance of the engineer was from a Swiss company called Solidaire Suisse, which is located, their office, they have a Salvadoran office, and they basically supervise the whole engineering of this system and help the people know what to do by giving guidance. Members from these communities are working on the filter tank. Meanwhile, the CCR women also bring seeds and provide guidance for starting home gardens in each water project community. With improved access to water, they can soon grow more food. And here the CCR with the women sharing about healthy foods. Like they really focus on indigenous plants, plants that are readily available, and the medicinal and edible qualities and nutritional qualities, I should say, of the foods. And they're teaching them about organic gardening. Sorry, somebody's trying to reach me. By late 2020, this first water project, the dream that the people had for 10 years, becomes reality. Over 200 families now have potable water coming into their homes and schools from a mountain spring source, and they are so happy. It's made the lives of the women, especially the lives of the women, so much easier, and the health of everyone. They knew they weren't drinking healthy water from the river. They knew it. And in January 2022, so a year ago, accompanied by SHARE and CCR staff, there you see Sister Cecilia Hudick in the polka dot dress. She was our chairperson of our water project committee, and I, invited by Cecilia to come along with her, visit these communities of the first completed water project, serving nearly 800 people in their homes and schools. So some of the people you see here are on their water committee who are stewarding the water project. One of them is trained as a plumber just for this water system. And we joined the communities that same day for a mass of thanksgiving and blessing with the Bishop of Chalatenango. It was a very hot day, something like in the 90s. You can see people are being very careful yet about the pandemic. The bishop offers prayers of thanksgiving for the wonderful new source of water. Some poured into this beautifully painted clay jug, which was given to the Sisters of Charity from the 3 communities. So that jug, Cecilia sent that jug to Halifax, where it's probably in a display cabinet somewhere. The second water project, so we had a second one that followed this first one. It was started during, just before the pandemic, we started it, and then it was on hold for a while. It was for another 49 families, and this is about a 2-hour drive away from where the first project was. Very different situation here. It's making good progress, but it required the drilling of a well, so not a mountain spring, but these women for decades were carrying these kind of rubber jugs on their heads down this high altitude over rough terrain to bring up water from a source that was about 30 minutes away. And just imagine carrying heavy water then uphill over rough terrain and doing that daily. So it required a well, and that was the responsibility of the municipality, the mayor. And it was all approved by the mayor when they knew that they had partners to help them with all the other aspects. So again, the Sisters of Charity were going to fund the same things, latrines and pipes and tanks. So drilling deep for a well finally struck water, just a couple of months ago in October. And I'm there with them at the end of October because I had another opportunity to visit these communities. And that's one of the latrines in that community, 11 latrines. In that first community that I had shown you earlier, there were 27 latrines that we were able to finance. And that was, over 200 families in that area. Here, there's 49 families, and we could finance 11 latrines, but probably another 11 are still needed, which we'll have to find other funding for. And this is the mayor, the wonderful Maribel Escobar, who just stuck with it even through challenging moments of this whole drilling of the well and troubleshooting, etc. Because they hit solid rock at about 90 meters, and they didn't have a big enough equipment. And then it started the rainy season in El Salvador, and they had to leave the mountain, the company did, with the smaller equipment, wait for the rainy season to basically subside, come up, rugged terrain up back, these awful roads with bigger equipment, much bigger. And then they started again. I think it was early October, and within 2 weeks, they had hit water. And this is getting, you see the water there. It was 10 days or so after they had hit it that I happened to be there. And that wasn't planned, by the way. We didn't know if there would be, success here. And that water is running at 70 gallons per minute. 70 gallons per minute. That's more than a gallon per second. And it's great water. We were both so happy that the drilling had struck good water. You can see the joy on our faces. So it's a wonderful story of collaboration to bring God's great gift of safe drinking water to poor rural communities in Chalatenango. And if this might work, we'll see here. You can hear it. This is a little video I took right in that spot of the water running. I'll end with 2 last slides here. Thomas Berry said, when humans unite on a species level and set themselves on the path of restoring humanity and the earth community, a great flood of healing energies will carry us forward into centuries of the most deeply satisfying and pleasurable work. And I have to say, that whole experience of the water projects in El Salvador, I felt so privileged to be on our water project committee. That was very pleasurable work. I call it formative joy. It really was. I just have such a feeling for those people now too, since meeting them. And as Pope Francis clearly articulates in Laudato Si', we now walk the path being forged for all humanity, for the healing of earth as an essential way of life. So may God bless each of you for all your ways of taking action and walking these sacred pathways. So we have just a few minutes here. I'll just open it up to you. Thank you. Thank you.
I was amazed at the perseverance of the people
Yes.
over so many different things and they didn't rush it. They persevered.
They did persevere, absolutely.
Oh, amazing.
They knew they had, when people link arms, and they were linking arms with us. They were linking arms with SHARE, with CCR, with Solidaire Suiza, Sisters of Charity, the mayor. Everybody's linking arms for a common goal, for the common good. And it feels so good to be about that kind of motivation together, It makes all the difference in the world.
We had a water crisis right here in our community a few years ago, and it was very concerning. We were told you can't drink the water, you can't bathe in the water, very similar to what you're seeing in foreign countries. Now there's a strong movement to examine and restore the health of our Great Lake Erie, which is making some inroads, but it's taking a great deal of time to get that moving.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, we're going to see more and more of this, I think, David. We have water issues where I live here too. you know, most of it is related to climate here because there's longer periods of drought, even though it's called a rainforest here. We have these long stretches of drought that can go from April till September now. And we don't have a lot of underground aquifer activity going on here. Where I live, you don't have pipes from a municipal area. What you have is you've either got a place with one or two cisterns, right, holding tanks for rainwater coming off the roof. That's how I live, just rainwater. That's my only water coming into this building I'm in right here. And if you're lucky, if you've drilled a well, if you own a place and you've drilled a well and you've got a successful place, you know, successful well, then there's that water. Those are the sources here. And when tanks go dry, then you have to call a water company to bring it over from the nearest city. Other comments about the water projects in El Salvador or anything about this evening? Do you see how they're interconnected?
I was reminded of the existential value and invaluable gift of women religious and how they currently are living out the gospel.
Wow, thank you for that. What's your name?
A model for the rest of us.
A model. Thank you.
How big is your congregation, Maureen?
We're a little under 200 now.
Mhm.
And our average age is creeping up, you know, it's probably around 82 now. I'm one of the younger ones. And I'm 66. That's our reality. So we're heading towards completion. That's a word that's not just been uttered, it's in our chapter statement. Yeah, but we keep, you know, we keep doing these works as long as we can do them, right?
I was thinking of the tenacity of the women, you know, yeah, probably, I don't know what their disease rate is like, you know, but having all this polluted water and
Yeah.
bathing in it and drinking it and eating with it and everything else. And, oh my gosh, to have fresh water, I mean,
Yeah.
that's like a miracle. I can't
It
even
is. Rosine, the joy in those people, and they say it even tastes great, like that mountain spring water. And it has to go through some chlorination, like in that tank that's, you know, one of the two tanks has some chlorination going on in it. So that is required by their local health authorities. But it's still, it's not too much chlorine that they can't taste how good the water is, you know. It's wonderful water from, I think, from both sources. We'll have more reports on the second water project coming up in another month or so. Just a few minutes left till we hit the hour, if you have any comments to make.
How did you, as a community, how were you able to raise money or to be able to financially be so generous in a community so small like yours is?
Yeah, it's small, but we've divested a lot of things over the years. You know, we used to own schools and hospitals and our university, Mount St. Vincent University, you know, that's in Halifax. So we've divested over the years, and our convents pretty well, you know, are gone. There might be just a couple left in New York, Boston, and summer houses. So when you divest, there's, you know how it goes. So there's some investment, and there's a certain percent of our investments that go every second year. It goes towards a water project because we have two corporate statements. One is on water, as you've heard. The other one is on human trafficking. So every second year, you know, the alternate year, the funding goes towards maybe safe houses or something for women who have escaped trafficking.
That's beautiful. I'm a school sister of Notre Dame, and we're in provinces, and we just had to sell our mother house now. So hearing you say this, that makes an idea, an interest that I'm really grateful, so grateful for what you shared tonight.
Thank you. And we have deconstructed our mother house probably 15 or 20 years ago. I forget now how many years ago. So we don't have a mother house,
Uh-huh.
you know, and so all of that, selling that land where the mother house had been to a development. So all of that is in process right now.
Mm,
But yeah, thank you for your question.
thank you.
Well, Rosine, do you want the last word?
I'm speechless, believe it or not.
I don't believe it.
You know me wonder about that statement, but, you know, yeah, this is very powerful, Maureen. And I think that was God that sent the inspiration to bring you here virtually so that we could benefit by everything that you're saying. It's been a marvelous evening. We want to give her one more round of applause, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for coming.
Now it's our bewitching hour because we're 9 o'clock. I don't know what
Yes, it's almost 6 o'clock, time for supper.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you. It's
thank
great to
you.
be with you. It's great to have a Ohio connection here tonight, too. I'm thinking of my grandmother, who was such a wonderful, wonderful woman. Her name was Mary Ann Elver. Came
Oh,
from German ancestry there in Delphus, Ohio.
oh, well, this was so great. And, you know, I always, you're sending so many wonderful Sisters of Earth communications to us. And now to see your face is so wonderful.
Oh, that's
And
great. I'm glad you're
thank
with
you.
the Sisters of Earth Network.
Oh,
That's
yes,
great. Beautiful.
yes.
Well, blessings of Earth to you.
Thank you. Our little farm that we work on is Earthrise. So
Oh, beautiful. Oh, good. Wonderful.
The
thank you
Sisters of
so
Earth are a
much.
group of
Okay,
women,
you're very
mostly
welcome.
and lay people, women across the globe, actually. When you get on we had a seminar this past summer, and we had 101 people, and there were people from 13 or so different countries.
Yeah.
Also, it was wonderful. And Maureen is the one who puts out the newsletter for Sisters of Earth.
Well,
So
they send me their announcements and I just put them in an email. Yeah, but thank you. You don't give me too much credit. I just kind of gather them up.
no, but I mean, you put the newsletter together. So if anybody's interested in that, go to sistersofearth.org, I guess.
I think
and
it's maybe .net. I can't remember. Sisters of Earth. Yeah, just Google sistersofearth.net. You'll find us.
Our next lecture will be March 14th. It's Embracing the Challenge of Sustainability, Reshaping Minds and Investing in Our Common Future by Dr. Justin Mogg, who is from Kentucky, I believe. And we'll be seeing him again on Zoom, and in person here, like we've been doing. And our last one will be April 11th, A Hope in Transapocalyptic Times. But you can see that. I don't have the flyer done. I didn't follow up on that to have it done for March. So you'll just get it in your emails. And when I get to Carla to get it done. So thank you for coming. I hope this was a powerful, motivating factor for you. A time to think. She gave us time to listen. And very important that we do that, and that she did it that way. So have a good night. Careful going home.